My brother disappeared on Halloween night in 1990. In 2001, I found his costume in a thrift store, and something was still inside it. I've never liked Halloween. Not since 1990. That was the year my younger brother, Evan, vanished without a trace. He was 8. I was 12. He went missing while trick-or-treating on our street in small-town Indiana, a flat stretch of quiet homes, leaf piles, old porches, and single moms who left bowls of Smarties on the front step. It was the kind of neighborhood where nothing ever happened, until it did. I was supposed to be watching him that night. And I wasn't. Let me start from the beginning. Evan had been excited for weeks. He'd picked out his costume himself, a homemade Frankenstein's monster. Green face paint. Ragged gray shirt with foam stitches glued on. Black boots 2 sizes too big that clonked on the sidewalk like he was stomping through a swamp. He loved that. Our mom, a nurse working night shifts back then, asked me to take him out while she was on call. I didn't want to. I was 12 and pissed off because I couldn't go to my friend Jeremy's party. Babysitting duty wasn't cool. So I agreed to go with Evan, but told him we'd only do 1 block. Just 1. We left the house around 6:30 p.m. The sky was already darkening, burnt orange fading behind the tree line. Leaves blew around in gusts that smelled like wet dirt and cigarettes. Evan held his little plastic pumpkin bucket and ran ahead like he always did. I lagged behind, half texting on my cheap Nokia, half watching the sky. He hit 6 houses. Made dumb monster noises the whole time. Growled at a toddler dressed like a pumpkin. Cackled when someone gave him a whole candy bar. Then, around 6:50 p.m., he ran up to this old greenhouse on Bixler Lane, the one everyone in town called the place no one buys. It wasn't abandoned. Someone lived there. But no one knew who. The lights were always off. No cars in the driveway. But that night, there was a flickering jack-o'-lantern on the porch and a crooked little sign, "Take 1." He looked back at me and grinned. "Last house, I swear," he said. I waved him off. And that was the last time I ever saw him. He never came back down the walkway. I waited maybe 3 minutes. 5. Then I walked up myself. The porch was empty. No pumpkin. No candy bowl. No sign. The light inside the house was off. The screen door was locked. I rang the bell. Knocked. No answer. I checked the yard. The bushes. The side alley. Nothing. Just wet leaves and silence. By 7:20, I was sprinting home. Mom wasn't back yet, so I called 911. They sent 2 officers. I gave them everything. They knocked on doors, searched the neighborhood, even went back to the greenhouse, but claimed no one lived there. That the house had been vacant for 2 years. I told them about the jack-o'-lantern, the candy sign, the light. But when they checked again, there was nothing. No pumpkin. No decorations. No footprints. They said maybe Evan wandered off. Maybe he ran ahead. Maybe I wasn't watching him close enough. I wasn't. But I know what I saw. The search went on for weeks. They brought in dogs. Helicopters. Flyers went up all over the county. We got phone calls at all hours. Tips. Cruel pranks. Psychics. A man who said he'd seen Evan in a Walmart in Kentucky. All dead ends. Our mom started drinking more. She quit her job a year later. Said she saw Evan in her dreams. That he was wearing the same Frankenstein costume but older. Taller. I tried to move on. But I never really did. Then, in October of 2001, everything changed. I was 23, living in Indianapolis. Working part-time and going to community college. Trying not to drown in bills. Halloween rolled around again. My girlfriend at the time, Lisa, dragged me into a Goodwill to find something ironic to wear to her friend's party. I was flipping through a rack of old coats when I saw it. At first I thought it was just some old monster costume. But then I saw the shirt. Gray. Ragged. With foam stitches hot glued on the shoulder. And the boots. Scuffed, black, too big. Exactly like the ones Evan wore. I froze. Lisa called my name. I didn't answer. I walked over, reached out, and touched the fabric. It was soft. Faded. And then I saw the tag inside the collar. Written in smudged black marker. E. Hargrove. My last name. I bought the costume without a word. At home, I laid it out on my floor. I couldn't breathe. Then I turned the shirt inside out. And something slipped out of the sleeve. A candy wrapper. Crunch bar. Still folded. Still partially full. And inside it, wrapped tightly, was a small piece of paper. Torn from a notepad. In a child's handwriting. He said I can't go home yet. He said I have to watch. He said I'll understand when you see the basement. I didn't sleep that night. I sat on the floor with Evan's costume spread in front of me, staring at the wrapper and the note over and over again. Trying to convince myself it wasn't his handwriting. That it was just some weird coincidence. That I was being dramatic. Grief-stricken. Haunted by guilt. But I knew it was real. I remembered the way Evan wrote his R's, almost like K's with no back leg. The loops in his E's. The way he wrote in all caps unless someone corrected him. It was all there. And his name was in the collar. This wasn't like his costume. It was his costume. And it hadn't been burned or buried or lost in the woods. It had been worn. Folded. Preserved. Like someone had kept it all this time. On purpose. I went back to the Goodwill store the next morning as soon as it opened. Told the lady at the counter that I'd bought a Halloween costume the night before and wanted to know where it came from. She said donations weren't tracked by item. Everything just came in bulk, bags, boxes, truckloads from all over the state. Could it have come from an estate sale? I asked. Maybe, she said. Some stuff comes from closed homes. Foreclosures. Cleanouts. I pushed harder. Do you remember anything about a green bag that came in with Halloween stuff? Gray shirt, black boots. She gave me a look. You want me to remember a green bag out of hundreds? I offered her $50. Then $100. She hesitated. Then sighed and walked to the back room. A few minutes later, she returned with a clipboard. Only thing that came in solo this week, she said, was a sealed box dropped off by a moving company. No sender name. No pickup location. Just a note taped to the lid that said, Fall Cleanout, Bixler LN. Bixler Lane. My stomach dropped. That was the street where Evan vanished. That night, I drove back to our hometown. I hadn't been back in years. Mom had moved away in '97, sold the house to some young couple who repainted everything and put a swing set in the yard like nothing ever happened. Like our lives weren't shattered on that porch. I didn't care. I wasn't going home. I was going to Bixler Lane. I parked 2 blocks away and walked up just after midnight. The greenhouse was still there. It looked worse than ever, overgrown yard, busted window, paint curling off the siding. No lights. No movement. Still vacant, apparently. Or so they said. But I knew better. I checked the front door. Locked. Then I walked around to the back. The kitchen window was cracked. I popped it open with my pocket knife and climbed through. Inside, the air was stale. The floor was sticky. Smelled like wet wood and mold and something sour that had soaked into the walls. I turned on my flashlight. Everything was covered in dust, but not evenly. There were spots where it had been disturbed. Footprints. Clean patches on the counter. A cup on the table. A small stack of paper napkins. Someone had been here. Recently. I moved through the hallway slowly. Everything creaked. Most of the house was empty, old furniture draped in yellowing sheets, peeling wallpaper, an unplugged fridge. Nothing unusual. Nothing damning. Until I reached the basement door. It was locked with a deadbolt from the outside. That alone was strange. Why lock a basement from the top? I picked the lock with the same knife and opened it. The smell hit me immediately, not rot. Not death. Just cold. And dirt. And time. The stairs were unfinished wood, sagging with every step. When I reached the bottom, I saw the light, faint, flickering, unnatural. A single bulb on a cord swayed from the ceiling, casting a yellow glow over a concrete floor. It was cold. Much colder than upstairs. In the corner of the basement, surrounded by piles of newspaper and rotted storage bins, was something I still have trouble describing. A chair. Child-sized. Strapped to the floor with metal brackets. Beside it, a tape recorder. A small mirror. And a piece of cloth that looked exactly like the foam-stitched gray shirt Evan had worn. There were scratches on the concrete floor, like something had been dragged in circles. And on the wall behind the chair, something had been written in faded marker. Watch what he sees. I didn't want to. But I pressed play. The recorder word. Static. Then a voice. My brother's voice. He said I'm lucky, 'cause I get to watch. He said the others don't last that long. He said I should sit still or he'll rewind me. Then a pause. Then, softly. I think he made another me. Click. Silence. I sat there for over an hour. I don't know how long. Just, frozen. Eventually, I took the recorder. I took the cloth scrap. And I left. Back at the motel, I replayed the tape 5 times. The voice was Evan's. Younger than I remembered. Tired. Hollow. Not crying, but close. And the last line kept echoing in my head. I think he made another me. There was something else on the tape. At the very end, after the click, you could hear a door opening. And footsteps. And a sound like a match lighting. And a voice. Deeper. Slower. Measured. It said just 3 words. Not yet. Watching. After the motel, I couldn't sleep. I sat in the dark with the tape recorder on repeat, the costume laid out in front of me, the note and candy wrapper pinned to the wall like pieces of evidence in a crime scene, which, I guess, they were. That last line on the tape haunted me. I think he made another me. What did that mean? Did Evan think he'd been replaced? Or was it a child's way of explaining something he didn't understand? Something someone did to him? I needed information. And not the kind you find online. So I went to the Somerset County Library, where I used to do book reports as a kid. It still had the same weird moldy smell, same tan carpeting, same cranky lady at the reference desk, only now she had white hair and moved like her knees were made of glass. I asked for old microfilm records from 1990 through 1991, especially anything about missing persons. She squinted at me like I was trouble, then slowly pointed toward the basement stairs. "Microfilm's down there," she said. "Mind the second step, it's soft." Down in the archive, I spent 5 hours scrolling through local papers. The Somerset Herald, the Free Tribune, some forgotten off-brand community bulletin. Most of the articles were mundane: town fairs, bake sales, flooding on Route 34. But then I found it. Boy missing after Halloween trick-or-treating, November 1, 1990. There was Evan's photo. The same one Mom used on the flyers. His gap-toothed smile. The bolts glued to his hoodie to look like Frankenstein's neck screws. But the article said something strange. Police say Evan Hargrove was last seen walking up the steps of a house on Bixler Lane, believed to be 213, a property currently under foreclosure at the time. Under foreclosure? No, that wasn't true. Because I remembered the light in the window. The candy bowl. The pumpkin. Someone lived there. Someone was home. I kept digging. Searched for anything else about 213 Bixler. That's when I found a brief article from 1980. Headline: Twin girls disappear on Halloween, costumes found in vacant house. The article was short. Just a few lines. No photos. Names: Rebecca and Claire Tolley. Age: 9. They'd gone out dressed as princesses and never returned. Their costumes were later found folded on a couch inside an abandoned house. 213, Bixler Lane. 10 years before Evan. I sat there for a long time, staring at the screen. Goosebumps crawling up my arms. 2 sets of kids. Same street. Same exact house. Same date, Halloween night. 10 years apart. That wasn't coincidence. That was a pattern. I asked the librarian if the town kept old police records. She gave me a tired look and said those were at City Hall, in the clerk's office, if they hadn't been boxed and buried. So I went. The clerk, a younger guy in his 20s, clearly didn't want to deal with me. But I told him I was doing research for a journalism class on past child disappearances. That got me a little farther. After 30 minutes, he wheeled out a cart stacked with boxes labeled "Missing, Unresolved." Inside, paper folders. Photos. Names. Some I'd heard of. Some I hadn't. And some were exactly what I feared. 3 other disappearances within a 10-year window. 1970, Charlie Pendleton, age 10, last seen going door to door in a homemade astronaut costume. 1960, Dennis Miles, age 11, dressed as a skeleton. Never came back from the other side of Bixler. 1950, unconfirmed, no name listed, but the note read, "Witness claimed to see a boy in a monster mask standing motionless on porch of 213 Bixler after curfew." No matching child in census. I stared at that last one. It didn't say anyone went missing. Just that no one knew who the kid was. But then I realized, what if he wasn't from that year? What if someone saw something else? The last folder was thin. Just a single sheet of paper. A hand-drawn floor plan of the basement at 213 Bixler. It matched what I saw: concrete room, chair bolted to floor. But there was one difference. In the bottom corner, someone had written, "Sublevel access. Check drain under chair. Possibly sealed entry. Prior complaint, noise from below. Repeating clicks. Repeating clicks. Like a projector. Like a rewind." I drove back to the house. This time, I brought tools. It was about 1 a.m. when I stepped back into the basement. The air was colder now. Still. Like the room was holding its breath. I shined my flashlight under the chair. There it was, a drain. Not big. Maybe 6 inches across. Old metal grate. Covered in grime. I pried it up. Underneath was a shaft. Concrete. Round. Descending into blackness. I lowered my phone down with the flashlight app on. It dropped for 7 seconds before landing with a soft thud. That was deep. And someone, or something, had been using it. I didn't tell anyone I was going back. No one would have believed me anyway. I parked 3 blocks from Bixler and walked with my backpack, flashlight, rope, gloves, crowbar, a spare burner phone. I was ready for anything, at least, I thought I was. At 2:08 a.m., I lowered myself into the shaft beneath the chair. The drop wasn't smooth. The inner concrete was rough, crumbling. I used a knotted rope to inch down. Took me nearly 4 minutes. The smell got worse the deeper I went, a mix of wet stone, rust, and something sour-sweet like expired meat. At the bottom, a narrow tunnel. 6 feet high. Dug by hand, from the looks of it. Dirt walls, old wooden beams for support, some already rotting. Someone had been down here. Recently. There were footprints. Large ones. Boots. And small ones too. Barefoot. I moved forward, step by step, deeper into this tunnel no one knew existed. After 20 minutes of slow walking, I found a door. Old. Metal. Heavy. Set directly into the dirt wall like someone built the entire tunnel just to lead here. Painted across it in thick black strokes were 3 words. Do not watch. Not, do not enter. Not, keep out. Do not watch. That scared me more than anything. Because that meant someone knew there was something to see. And that seeing it, not touching it, not being in its presence, but watching it, was the danger. I stood there a long time before opening the door. It creaked loud. Heavy on the hinges. The smell of dust and ozone hit me, like an old electrical room. Inside was a small chamber, maybe 12 by 12 feet. Cinderblock walls. Low ceiling. No furniture. Just a single reel-to-reel film projector aimed at a white-painted wall. The reel was already loaded. No sound. No movement. No light. And beside it, a wooden school chair. Same size and design as the one bolted upstairs. On the wall above the chair was something scratched into the paint with what looked like a nail. He never blinks. The room was quiet. Too quiet. No hum. No dripping. No airflow. Like it was sealed off from time. I moved to the projector and checked it. No power cord. No outlet. But the switch flicked forward like it was ready. Like it wanted to play. I stood still. Thinking. Then I remembered the tape Evan left. He said I have to watch. He said I'll understand when you see the basement. He said I'll understand. So I sat. I flicked the projector on. It came alive instantly, with no power, no wires, no explanation. The beam hit the wall. And the film began. At first, static. Flecks of black and white. The soft clicking of the reel. Then, slowly, an image came into focus. A street. Quiet. Trees. Orange leaves blowing across asphalt. Bixler Lane. Filmed from a high angle. Maybe the second floor of a house. It was Halloween. I saw myself. 12-year-old me, walking behind Evan. And then. Evan, running up to the greenhouse. Just like I remembered. But then the angle changed. Jerked. Shifted. The lens zoomed in, into the house. Through the front window. Into the hallway. Into the basement. The chair was there. Evan was in it. Strapped down. Screaming. But there was no sound. And behind him, in the corner, a figure stood completely still. Not a monster. A man. Middle-aged. Pale. Wearing the same Frankenstein costume Evan had worn. Down to the foam stitches. Down to the boots. He turned and looked directly into the camera. At me. Then everything froze. I blinked. The film stopped on a single frame, Evan's terrified face. Eyes wide. Mouth open mid-scream. The projector clicked. But the film wasn't moving anymore. The reel kept spinning, but the image on the wall didn't change. And in the corner of the room, the temperature dropped. My breath started fogging. Then, faintly, the screen changed again. Just one frame. A close-up. Of Evan's eye. And in the reflection of his pupil. Me. But not from 1990. Me. Now. Watching him. I stood. Backed away. The projector kept running, but the image didn't flicker. Then the bulb blew out with a loud pop. The room went dark. And in that silence, I heard it. Behind me. From somewhere deeper in the tunnel. 3 slow knocks. Then a voice. He watched. Now he remembers. Now we start again. I bolted out of that room. Climbed the shaft like a madman. Ran all the way to my car, sweating, shaking, covered in dirt and fear. But the worst part. The next morning, when I got back to the motel. The projector reel was in my backpack. I never put it there. And taped to the side of the canister, was a note. In familiar handwriting. My handwriting. Do not watch again. Not until the next Halloween. Not until he's back. Part 5, The Loop. I didn't touch the reel for days. I kept it in a box under the bed in my motel room. Taped it shut. Pretended it wasn't there. But it was. And I knew it was mine now. Not in the metaphorical sense. Literally, the note was in my handwriting. Same crooked lowercase r, same angular m's. Same habit of underlining instead of using quotes. I knew it wasn't forged. I had written it. I just didn't remember when. The days that followed were a blur of paranoia. I barely ate. Barely spoke. I started seeing my reflection move half a second out of sync. Woke up to find chairs moved slightly, lights on I didn't remember turning on. And the worst part, I began to see Evan. Not fully. Not clearly. But quick flashes. Across the street. In a crowd. Reflected in shop windows. Always in that same Frankenstein costume. But older. Taller. And every time I ran toward him, he disappeared. I finally called my mom. We hadn't spoken in months. I didn't want to drag her back into it, into the grief, the ache, the years of silence. But something in me cracked. When she picked up, her voice was weaker than I remembered. I told her I'd found Evan's costume. That I'd found something, underground. She didn't respond right away. Then she said something that chilled me. I always wondered if you were the one that came back. What do you mean? I asked. But she just whispered. Sometimes, I look at old pictures of you, and your eyes, they changed after that night. I buried 2 sons. I just didn't know it at the time. Then she hung up. I stared at the wall for hours after that. Then I dug the box out from under the bed. The reel was cold in my hands. I took it to a film processing service 2 towns over. Told the guy it was family archive footage. He digitized it in 2 days. When I watched the digital version, something was different. It had an extra minute of footage. At the very end, after Evan's eye, after my own face in the pupil, there was a final scene. A hallway. Cracked tile. Fluorescent lights. The camera panned slowly, and stopped in front of a door with a single word painted across it. Remakes. And underneath, in a smaller font, as if scrawled after. 1 every 10. I froze the frame. Zoomed in. Behind the word remakes, someone had carved initials. E.H. J.C. R.T. D.H. My initials. I didn't remember carving that. But something in me knew it had been my job. To continue it. To repeat it. To remake the loop. I started checking dates. All of the disappearances I'd found followed a pattern, 1 child every 10 years. Always on Halloween. Always aged between 8 and 11. The original would vanish. And then, something would replace them. Not a clone. Not a ghost. Just a version. With all the same clothes, voice, mannerisms. Built from memory. But hollow. And someone, some person, not a demon, not a monster, had figured out how to do it. Using images. Footage. Memory as blueprint. Pattern as ritual. And the ritual needed a witness. That's what Evan meant. He said I have to watch. Not for torture. Not for fun. But for reconstruction. The watching was the encoding process. By watching, he was feeding the template. He was part of the duplication. So was I. So was every witness. And now, it was almost Halloween 2002. I began searching for houses recently vacated on Bixler Lane. Only one showed up on property records. 221 Bixler, recently foreclosed. Owner of record deceased, name withheld. I drove by. It was empty. No tape on the windows. No padlock. But the door was nailed shut from the inside. And taped to the door, with old yellowing duct tape, was an envelope. Inside, a photo. Black and white. Old. 2 kids on a porch. Evan and me. But in the photo. I wasn't me. I looked wrong. Stretched. Face off center. Like a blurry double exposed over someone else's. And behind us, in the window, barely visible. A man in the Frankenstein costume. The back of the photo had 3 words scrawled in pencil. Not him again. That night, I checked into a different motel. One with no mirrors. I taped up the windows. I unplugged the TV. I turned all the photos in the room around. And still. When I looked down at my phone screen, just the black screen before unlocking, I saw someone standing behind me. Not Evan. Not the man. Just a shape. My height. But still. Waiting. Part 6, The Others. I didn't sit in the chair. I stood there, breathing hard, the old floor creaking beneath my boots. The smell of burnt plastic and warm dust clung to the walls like a second skin. The costume on the chair, Evan's, looked too clean. Too intentional. Like bait. Like an altar. The note said he doesn't need Evan anymore. That he needs someone to remember. But who the hell was he? And why was I always part of this? I walked past the chair and deeper into the house. The hallway led to a narrow staircase I had never seen before, one that didn't exist back in 1990. It went down. Not into the basement. Below that. Deeper. Each step felt wrong under my foot. Like I was descending into something that didn't want to be touched anymore. At the bottom was a hallway. Longer than it should have been. Concrete walls. Flickering yellow light. And doors. 12 of them. All labeled. All steel. Bolted from the outside. On the doors, names. Some I recognized. C. Pendleton. J. Kessler. Art Tolley. D. Hargrove. That last one stopped me cold. It was my name. Not Evans. Not someone else's. Mine. I tried the handle. Locked. I looked through the slit in the top. Darkness. Then something moved. A shape. A face. My face. But wrong. Sunken eyes. No color in the skin. A smile that looked like it had been learned, not felt. He stared up at me, blinking slowly. Then raised a finger to his lips. Shoo. And behind him, dozens of others. All watching. Some were kids. Some teens. Some, me. Every version I could have been. Standing in the dark like audience members in a memory I didn't want to have. I stepped back. My pulse roaring in my ears. I opened the next door. It wasn't locked. Inside, a small, sterile room. White tile. One chair. A reel-to-reel projector in the corner. Always the projector. A light clicked on. And a screen descended from the ceiling. I didn't touch anything. The film started on its own. It showed a bedroom. Pink wallpaper. Stuffed animals. A girl, maybe 8 years old, standing in front of the camera. She smiled. Nervous. Then a voice from behind the camera said, "Do you know what this is for?" She nodded. "Say your name." "Rebecca Tolley." "And what do you do when you see him?" "I smile." "And if he asks you to follow?" "I go." "Even if you're scared?" "Yes." "Even if it's not the first time?" She hesitated. "Yes." The screen went black. I turned to leave. The hallway behind me had changed. Now it was longer. The doors had multiplied. The air got colder. The silence thicker. Like the building was breathing. Or thinking. I walked fast. But no matter how many steps I took, the hallway just kept going. The names on the doors started repeating. D. Hargrove. D. Hargrove. D. Hargrove. But the first initials weren't always D. Sometimes it was E. Hargrove. Or L. Hargrove. Or just Hargrove. And sometimes there was no name at all. Just Copy 7A. Watcher Unit 2. Projection file, primary host. The last door was wide open. Inside, a mirror. Full length. Surrounded by 12 small television screens. Each screen played a looped video. In one, I was brushing my teeth. In another, riding a bike. In another, watching myself on a screen. I looked in the mirror. And the reflection didn't match. It blinked slower than me. Then it smiled. And said, "He doesn't forget. He waits for the next one. You just remember for him." The lights flickered. The room behind me was gone. The door, gone. Just me. The mirror. And that voice. Part 7, The Department. The mirror room stayed quiet for a long time. No sounds. No movement. I stood in front of it, staring at the version of me that wasn't quite me. Same face. Same jawline. Same scar on the temple from when I fell off my bike in '88. But the eyes were too still. And the smile too, rehearsed. Like it knew how my muscles worked, but not why. Then, the lights above buzzed. Soft hum. Cool white glow. Behind me, a new hallway. Wasn't there before. Tiled floor. No doors. Just a sign on the wall with embossed black letters. Memory records, intake 04. And underneath, in smaller font. Personnel only. No door. Just a narrow scanner panel on the wall. I stepped close. It beeped once. Then clicked. And opened. Inside, a small room that looked like an office. Desk. Filing cabinets. Fluorescent light overhead. And a man in a gray shirt and ID badge, sitting behind the desk, sorting through folders like it was any Tuesday. He didn't look up when I entered. Didn't react. Just calmly flipped a page. Then said. "You came earlier than expected." I didn't answer. He finally looked up. No smile. No frown. Just a perfectly neutral expression. Like I was just another form to process. Name. I stayed silent. He checked a paper on the desk. Hargrove, Daniel. Copy sequence, 4B. Discrepancy detected, behavioral divergence. Timeline breach occurred at location 213B, contact with loop subject E, Hargrove. Projector breach. Sublayer drift. Witness status, active. He looked back at me. "Why did you engage the footage?" Still, I said nothing. He scribbled something in pencil. Then opened a drawer and pulled out a manila folder. Stamped in red ink across the front, recursive, flagged for manual reset. Inside was a photo. Of me. Sitting in a chair. Smiling. Wearing the Frankenstein costume. But I had no memory of that photo. He slid the folder across the desk. "You were never meant to recover original sequence memory. That capability is only retained by the final copy. The witness. But your recall exceeded limits. You opened the door." I stared at him. My fists clenched. "What is this?" I asked. Finally. He tapped the badge on his shirt. It read. Memory Integrity, Department of Duplicate Stability. He spoke like a technician explaining a broken copier. "This isn't about you. You're not the subject. You're the container. The host. You weren't supposed to wake up. But now you have." He paused. Opened a drawer. Pulled out something small and metal. A tag. Worn. Burned around the edges. Etched into it, E. Hargrove, Original. Then another. D. Hargrove, Copy 3A, Stable/Obsolete. And then. D. Hargrove, Copy 4B, Active. He placed it gently on the desk in front of me. "That's you." I backed away. He didn't stop me. Didn't threaten. Just said, like it was the weather. "You'll need to choose soon. You can't both exist. He comes back this year." "Who?" I asked. His eyes flicked up. Cold. Mechanical. "The next one." I ran. Out of the office. Down the hall. But the walls changed. The floor beneath my feet wasn't tile anymore, it was linoleum. Then cement. Then wooden floorboards. I burst through a doorway and suddenly I was standing. In my childhood home. Same hallway. Same smell. Halloween decorations on the table. Creaky light swinging above. I heard a child's voice. Laughter. Evan's voice. I turned the corner. And saw myself. 12 years old. Holding Evan's hand. Walking him to the door. Like it was just starting all over again. I screamed. They didn't turn. The door opened. They stepped out into the night. And the projector clicked on behind me. Part 8, Replay. The projector buzzed behind me. I didn't turn around. I just stood in the living room of our old house, the same dusty air, the same pictures on the wall. Except now, the frames were all turned backward. Faces hidden. Forgotten on purpose. And from outside, I could hear them. Footsteps. Trick-or-treaters. Plastic masks. Distant voices echoing across 1990. I stepped toward the hallway. The door was wide open. And there, on the porch, stood my younger self, 12 years old. He looked just like I remembered. But his face. He wasn't confused. He wasn't afraid. He was smiling. Not at Evan. At me. He said nothing. Just pointed inside the house. I stepped forward slowly, past him. Into the dark hallway. And then I heard it. A projector click. A chair creak. A child whisper. Are you watching now? I turned. Evan was sitting at the kitchen table. Same Frankenstein costume. But he wasn't 8. He was older. Same as me. Same eyes. He looked up. It's your turn, he said. You watched it last time. You know how this works. What do you mean? I asked. My voice cracked. You had your run. But the loop resets. You were the witness. You remembered. That's all they needed. Then he stood. And walked toward me. We were the same height now. Same build. Same everything. He placed his hand on my shoulder. You're going back in. I tried to move, couldn't. My legs wouldn't listen. My hands just trembled at my sides. And in the corner of the room, a figure stepped forward. A man. Middle-aged. Wearing the Frankenstein costume. Same as Evan. Same as me. His face wasn't visible. Blurry. Distorted. Like it didn't exist until someone chose to remember it. The room went dark. Then bright. The chair was back. The projector loaded. And a voice I didn't recognize anymore whispered. Copy 4 be prepared for overwrite. Loop integrity restored. I tried to scream. Tried to run. Nothing. And then. I was back. In a motel. In another town. Waking up to a knock on the door. I opened my eyes. It was October 30th. Again. I went to the bathroom. Looked in the mirror. Everything looked the same. But my eyes were off. Just a little. Too still. And on the counter. A tape. Labeled. Watch tomorrow. Only if it repeats. Underneath. Foresee, previous copy. Do not merge. The next day, I walked the streets like nothing was wrong. I passed kids in costume. Smiling parents. Porch decorations. But I could feel it happening. Somewhere, another kid walking up to a house. Another chair waiting. Another version being made. And I could feel something else. Someone watching me. Not through a camera. Not from behind glass. But from inside. Like someone else's memory had started bleeding into mine. Like I wasn't just Daniel anymore. That night, I got a call. No number. No sound. Just silence. And then, a whisper. This time, don't forget him. Or he'll start making you again. Click. I threw the phone across the room. Sat down. Looked at the tape. Didn't touch it. Just stared. And whispered to myself. Don't watch. Don't remember. Don't repeat. But I already had. And deep inside me, something clicked. Like a reel being loaded. Ready to play again. Part 9, Archive Room 3. I didn't leave the motel the next day. I sat by the door, holding the tape in one hand, my old notes in the other. Trying to piece it all together. The cycles. The duplicates. The projectors. The watchers. Me. Every copy had a role. Every Halloween had a purpose. And somehow, every 10 years, the machine started again, using people like me as storage drives for memory. I went back to the department. It wasn't there. No office. No hallway. No scanner. Just an abandoned lot with dead weeds and broken concrete. But I remembered where the stairwell had been. I walked across the lot. Looked down. And found a metal hatch. Half buried in gravel. Unlabeled. But I knew. I opened it. And climbed down. Below, the hallway was exactly as before. Same smell. Same cold. Same quiet hum. But this time, I wasn't looking for doors with names. I was looking for Archive Room 3. The place Evan had whispered about, once, in the tape. They keep the old ones there. The broken ones. The ones who don't fit. I walked for what felt like 20 minutes. Then found the door. Gray. Rusted. Stenciled in faded white letters. Archive 03, decommissioned copies/aborted loops. I opened it. And immediately regretted it. The room wasn't a room. It was a warehouse. Rows and rows of chairs. Hundreds. Each one bolted to the floor. Each one occupied. Each one facing a blank wall. And on every wall, a projector. Spinning. Buzzing. Looping. Playing something, but with no light. Just sound. And the sound was always the same. Say your name. Say your name. Say your name. Over. And over. And over. I stepped down the main aisle slowly. Some of the people were kids. Some adults. Some, old. But all of them were blank. No reactions. No blinking. Just staring at the walls like they didn't even see them anymore. And one by one. I realized. I recognized them. Not individually. But as types. A girl who looked like Claire Tolley. A boy with Charlie Pendleton's buzzcut. An older man in a Frankenstein hoodie, face blurred by shadow. And then, at the far back corner, I saw myself. Sitting in chair 47. Eyes glassy. Mouth slightly open. Breathing. Barely. Just watching. I knelt down in front of him, it. And whispered. What are you watching? Nothing. Then. The next version. My voice. But drained. Faded. Like a VHS tape played too many times. How many versions are there? A long pause. Then. We stopped counting after 1985. Why? Too many resets. Too many witnesses. I stared. Then asked. Who's behind this? A single word. You. I stood up. Staggered backward. He didn't move. None of them did. They just sat there. Remembering. And behind me, the door clicked shut. Lights dimmed. The projector behind my chair started spinning. I ran to the door, but it was sealed. And from the ceiling, a calm, automated voice spoke. Memory integrity breach detected. Containment protocol, overwrite. Nearest compatible vessel, copy 4B. Initiating transfer. My vision blurred. Not from fear. From disconnection. I felt myself begin to slip. Thoughts scrambled. Timeline fragments surged up, 1990. 2001, 2012. 1980, 1950. Back and forth and back again. Until finally. Darkness. But not death. Just, repositioning. When I woke up, I was standing in a quiet thrift store. Fluorescent lights. Muted jazz on the speaker system. Plastic skeleton hanging from the ceiling. And in my hands. A Frankenstein costume. Tag inside. Property of E. Hargrove, copy 1A. And at my feet, a child was staring up at me. Big eyes. Holding a pumpkin bucket. He looked familiar. Then I realized, it was me. 8 years old. Looking at the costume in my hands. Like I was supposed to give it to him. Like I'd done this before. I handed it over. He smiled. Said nothing. And walked out the front door. I stood there. Still holding the empty hanger. And a voice came through the store speaker, just barely audible beneath the music. Loop status, stabilized. Copy 5A now in field. Witness memory dormant. Reset countdown, 10 years. Part 10, The Forgotten. 10 years passed. And the world kept spinning. No headlines. No bodies. No Halloween tragedies. Just quiet. The kind of quiet that feels wrong. Like the breath before a scream. I lived in a small town. New name. New job. New life. Every October, I'd leave for a cabin somewhere, no phone, no signal. I'd wait out Halloween like it was a storm. But this year, I forgot. I didn't plan. I let the date sneak up on me. Like I was tired of running. Or maybe, like he was. October 30th, 11:47 p.m. I woke up on the couch. TV static buzzing. Front door half open. And in the hallway mirror. He was standing behind me. Not Evan. Not the man. Not a thing. Me. The version that never broke. The one that stayed asleep. The perfect copy. He stepped forward. I didn't run. I just asked. What do you want? He tilted his head. You remembered too much. They don't like that. I nodded. So what happens now? His face twitched. Just once. Then he whispered. You have one chance. You can forget. Completely. Voluntarily. Willingly. And if I don't? He didn't answer. He didn't need to. Because behind him, in the hallway, I saw the chair. The projector. The costume. And the tape. He held out a small vial. Clear liquid. No label. No explanation. Just said. This erases all instances. All copies. Everything. No reset. No watcher. No memory loop. You take it, it's over. For you. For him. For all of them. I held the vial. It pulsed in my palm. Not warm. Not cold. Just, present. Like a decision. Like an end. But something in me hesitated. Not fear. Doubt. Because I realized something. If I forgot. If all of us forgot. He wins. The department. The projector. The chairs. They need forgetfulness. They feed on repetition. And if I wipe it away, there's nothing left to stop them. So I looked my copy in the eyes. And said, no. I'm not forgetting. I'm remembering everything. He didn't move. But something around us changed. The house began to flicker. Walls pulsing. Reality stuttering like scratched film. You can't hold all of it, he said. You're not designed for this. I smiled. I wasn't. But I became it. And you forgot something. A memory is stronger than a design. The projector in the hallway exploded. The chair caught fire. The tape snapped and whipped across the floor like a striking snake. And all the lights in the house went out, except the mirror. In it, 1,000 versions of me. All remembering. All watching back. And in that moment, the loop broke. Because for the first time, he was the one afraid. He backed away. Flickered. Twitched. And then. He was gone. The house collapsed. Not physically. Conceptually. Like it was never real to begin with. Just a stage. A set. A memory. And I was left standing in the dark. Alone. I opened my eyes. In a hospital room. For in my arm. Beeping machines. Doctor leaning over me. He said I'd been out for 2 weeks. Dehydrated. Starving. Found alone in an abandoned house. No evidence of anyone else. No tapes. No costumes. No chair. But I remembered. Every single frame. I moved to a cabin in Alaska. No phones. No mail. And I wrote everything down. Longhand. Page after page. Because memory is like fire. If you pass it on, it burns. If you hold it inside, it dies. This is that fire. And you've just held it. So now I say this to you. The reader. The listener. The next potential copy. If one Halloween night you hear a projector. Or see a chair that wasn't there before. Or feel like someone else is living your memories better than you ever did. Don't run. Don't forget. Just watch. Then tell someone. Because the moment we forget, he starts again.